Exercise 1 using Onshape in 2018. So let's begin. First of all, this is the part that we intend to model today, and as you can see, it's a thin-walled enclosure and there's some features on it. So this is really a foundational type of project. We're going to get started and see how the software works. Now, first of all, with Onshape, you could, especially for education, it's just very easy. Create an account and essentially you set that up, and you can pretty much run it on most devices. I've actually even tried it on a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus. It opened, but I really couldn't do much, and it was quite grainy. There were a lot of strange artifacts that were showing up on the screen. But then I did run it on a Tinker board, so and it ran just fine on that, actually. A little on the slow side, but it still ran. So needless to say, you could really run Onshape on most platforms. And that was in Raspbian. Okay, so I should say Debian. Anyhow, now what we're going to do, I'm running on Windows 10 here. I'm going to go ahead and start a new project. So I'm going to go up here to Onshape. And you can see this is actually the file management system. You can see there's a couple of the parts that I've worked on here. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to create a new part. So I'm going to hit Create. And you can see you could import files. They have a whole selection of import filters that you could actually bring in from other systems and neutral file formats. I'm going to go to Document, though. And I'm going to go ahead and name this E1 for Exercise 1. And when it's in something that you're building on the free version, which is for educational purposes, you have to create it as a public document. Okay, now what we have here on the left is basically what some systems call the browser, or actually it's been called the feature manager, design tree, things like that. I'm just going to call it the tree. And basically it will contain a roadmap of virtually everything we do. This is a parametric modeler, and it enables you to actually keep the history as well on there, so you could make modifications or change and update things later on, as change constantly occurs with design. It starts off with a front, top, and a right plane, and essentially those are your paper that you start sketching on. Later on, we'll be able to create new planes as well as select flat surfaces and sketch on them as well. I'm going to go ahead, and if you right-click with using your right mouse button, you'll see you have New Sketch, and I right-clicked over the front plane. Notice the front plane turned orange, and now I could select. I could click on the New Sketch. Now this time when I refer to click from here on out, I'm always referring to the left mouse button. That's what we use most of the time in the software. The right mouse button is used for editing, or in this case to select some pull-down menu options. So we're going to go with New Sketch. Now over here you have what looks like a little ice cube, and this enables you to go planar to the front, right, top, or an isometric view. You could pan and rotate clockwise and counterclockwise, things like that. I'm just going to click on front, and that should bring us normal to. Oh, actually, let me hit the. Let's start sketching here in just a second for some odd reason. There we go. It didn't take the first time. Okay, now I'm going to start with the corner rectangle. Whenever you see a little arrow to the right of one of these options, you hit the little arrow, and you'll see that there's additional options to choose from. But we're going to go with the corner rectangle here. I'm going to glide up to this point, and I'm going to click and drag this out. You can see the numbers come up for the approximate dimensions, and you could use those. As you click here, you'll see it will highlight one of them. It actually has a little box over it, and you could go ahead and, oops, I meant to actually type in the value there. I accidentally clicked on it, so I lost it, but that's okay, because we need to learn how to use the dimension tool. And right up here is the dimension tool. And with the dimension tool, you could select on a line or the endpoints of a line. I'm going to click on the line here, drag it to the left, and I'm going to get it centered between the goalposts there, or the we're going to try and follow some sort of standard of drafting here, and we want this to be 5 inches in height, so I'm just going to type in 5 and hit enter. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on this line down here and drag it down, and this is, I'm going to click down here and again center it between what I call the goalposts and type in 3. And so now that we have that, you could actually we have water type boundary condition, and I'm using the scroll wheel on the mouse to zoom in and out. Another way you could zoom to fit, you could just click on front here and that will zoom to fit. There's some other options over here on the right too. As you can see, there's zoom to fit, zoom to window, a bunch of different options to choose from, and isometric, trimetric, but I'm actually going to kick it into isometric mode here just so we can see what's going on. Now over here, we could go to the extrude feature. So we could click on that, and notice it takes the boundary condition that we drew and enables you to grab this arrow with the mouse button and drag it forward or backwards. And essentially, you could over here put in an explicit value. So for conceptualization, it's nice to pull on the arrow. Once you got your numbers down, go ahead and type in 0.5 up here, hit enter, and you'll see it will update. And just up here, hit the green check mark. Now notice in there, there's solid, new, add, remove, and intersect. We're going to just create new. Just leave it at the defaults and hit the green check. Now to zoom up again, we could click over here on this little segment of the ice cube. That will bring us back kind of to a trimetric view. I believe that's trimetric. Yes. And any of those are fine. And then if you want, you could actually use the scroll to scroll in and out. Zoom. And if you want to focus or pinpoint on an area, move your pointer over whatever area you'd like. Don't click on it, just scroll and continue to keep the focus of that point on that area, and it will scroll up to that location. So now I'm going to go ahead and right click on this surface. Now before, remember I told you those planes are paper. We could sketch on the front, top, and right. In this case now we're going to sketch on the actual surface of the model, and it has to be flat or planar in order to do this. So click on that and click on new sketch. Now we're going to go back over here to the rectangle, the corner rectangle, click, and you'll notice it will snap automatically to that lower left corner. Click, drag this up to the right side here. Notice you could glide along this edge. Eventually you do come upon a midpoint, which we don't want. I just wanted to show that to you, but get it down a little bit further. And what you're getting, notice those little boxes to the right of the pointer. You'll see those on a lot of CAD systems nowadays, and that's essentially there's two types of constraints you could add. There's numeric, which are basically dimensions, and then you also have constraints, dimensional constraints or relations as they're called in some systems. So these are like common elements of geometry, like parallelism, perpendicularity, things like that, tangency, and that really enhances, it takes away a lot of the, what we used to call tricks that you'd have to do in the older CAD systems that didn't have that, to make a line tangent to an arc and things like that. It's all here now. So click just anywhere on that edge, and you'll notice there's a variation in colors here. Notice the three lines surrounding the base are black, and then the top one here is blue. Now if you hit your escape key, you could actually now grab a point and drag it. Notice that point is locked in with a constraint to the edge. So that won't move, but you can move it up and down along that edge. That's why it's blue. It's underdefined. It means it's missing some sort of dimension or relation in order to lock it down. And before you go into production of a part, always make sure you go and you make sure everything's fully defined or black as you see. So let's do that right now. We're going to go to the dimension tool up here. Now notice this, next to the dimension tool, these are a lot of the different constraints that you could choose from. Okay, but we're just going to go with dimension and click on this line right here, drag it off to the right, get it between the goalposts, and let's go ahead and put 1.5. Hit enter. And now we could go ahead and extrude that. Let's go to extrude. There are fast keys. You might have caught that, like Shift E is for extrude. If you like fast keys, keep an eye on those, and I'll try and point some out when I see them too. Okay, so here we see the depth is set to 1 inch. Let's go ahead and type in 0.5. Hit enter. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and hit the green check mark. And silence my phone, sorry about that. Okay, and from here, now to rotate this, we've learned how to rotate with these little buttons here, like there's top, click on those. You could also click on a little isometric there. get it back there. Now to rotate this, you could hit the arrow keys on your keyboard. Right and left, rotate. Up and down, rotate. If you want a more smooth or dynamic rotate, try holding down the right mouse button and move your mouse left, right, up and down, and that will rotate. If you hold down the middle mouse button, which basically is your wheel, hold it down like it's a button, don't scroll it. We know scrolling zooms in and out. This will pan. Okay. So there's just a few samples. There's a lot of other options for that I'm not going to go into right now. Okay, now let's round these edges off. Let's go up here to the Fillet tool. Click on Fillet. Set your radius to 1 inch. So type in 1. You don't have to type in 1.00 or anything like that, but make sure you clear out whatever's in there by clicking on it so it's highlighted. Type in your value. And now let's go ahead and select this edge right here. You'll see the preview shows us what it's going to look like in advance. Click on this edge here. Again, we see the preview. And hit the green check mark to apply. Let's take a look at the chamfer tool right next to it. Chamfer is add an angle. So click on chamfer. And we're going to set it to 0.125. And we have it set to equal distance. So 0.125, that on this edge, because it's 90 degrees, it's going to make an equal 45 degrees all around. So we'll go ahead and click on this edge here, and you can see the preview there. Click on this edge, and we see it there. Hit the green check. So we have some chamfers on there. Now we're going to cut a hole in this. So right click on this surface here, and new sketch, and now find the circle tool, select it, and right about there click and drag out a circle. When you click here, you can now type in a new value. So I'm going to type in 0.75, and then now you can see the diameter is set to 0.75. And let's go to dimension this, and we want to go to front here. So click on the front ice cube up there, and now let's locate this with some dimensions. So click on the dimension tool, select the center point and this left edge. Drag it straight up, get it between the goalposts, as I call them. We all know those are extension lines, but I just call it that because those of you who are novices might not know what an extension line is. Anyhow, so type in 1 and hit enter. Let's do the same now. Click on that center point and then click on this top edge. Stay away from the points in the middle there, and then drag it over here to the left, get it centered, type in 1 inch for that value as well. Hit escape to get out of the dimension tool, and you'll notice you could grab these dimensions and relocate them. Make them, take them off of each other so it's easier to read. Okay, now at that point, we're gonna go ahead and go to extrude again. Now as we rotate this, you'll see it will want to add material. So up here, let's select remove. You'll see it should flip the direction, but always double check on the screen to make sure it's going through. Now, here's something. When it comes to modeling, change always occurs. You'll find when you're a designer, those of you who already know this, please forgive me for going through this, but those of you who are new designers or learning how to, change always occurs. So always trying to design with what's called design intent. And that, for example, this, let's say this is a mounting bracket. We know it's always going to be a through hole because a pin or bolt has to go through it. To ensure that it always is a through hole, you can always merge with all, and then that way it will always go through, or make sure in this case you have, actually don't merge with all, I'm sorry. Click on this little arrow that was to the right here and just select through all. That will ensure that no matter how thick this plate or this plastic part ever becomes, it's always a through hole. So you don't have to worry and go back, like say you made a minor change, made it a little bit smaller or whatever, and or a lot larger and was beyond that thickness, and then all of a sudden it's not a through hole anymore. So just be careful with that. Okay, hit the green check mark. Now right mouse button hold and move your mouse left, right, up and down. And now we're going to go ahead and shell this. So let's go to the shell command. Now you'll find, again, there's a whole selection of tools up here. and we want to find shell, and there it is. So click on shell, and we're going to go ahead and we'll keep it at 0.1 for the wall thickness. Now we're going to go ahead and select this face, and you'll see it disappears. Now you can select this face, and that disappears too, and then select this one. And those are the only ones I'd like you to select. I mean, you could have fun and select other things too. This gives you an idea though. Whatever face you select is essentially a face that will be removed. Everything else maintains the 100,000th shell. Hit the green check. And so there we have our first part in the software, Onshape. So very easy to use, very nice. Now there are some labs that go along with this, and the training guide it's in the process of being constructed, so I don't have it just yet. But a couple of the labs that go along with this, I usually tell my students, don't look at the video unless you get stuck. Okay, so at this point, I would recommend pausing the video and then going into your training guide, which I hope they have up there soon. No guarantees though. And anyhow, in there you'll find two drawings. One that looks like a letter F that's flipped on its side, and then one that's very similar to this with a couple additional features. So let's take a look. The very first one, again, I don't recommend my students watch this until they've tried it on their own. Been teaching this for 20 years, 20 plus years, and have just figured out after a while that students who actually try these on their own are much stronger at the software later on than a student who just watches the video straight out of the gate. So please, please, please give it a shot on your own. If you get stuck, unpause it and you can watch it. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go back to Onshape here, create, and I'm going to click on document. And this one is capital L1 for lab 1. Create public document. And like I said, this is like a letter F. So I'm going to right click on the front plane, and I'm going to go ahead and new sketch. I'm going to go normal 2, so I'm going to click on this front view orientation box. And now I'm going to use, in this case, the line tool. Now we used the rectangle tool earlier. Line tool is just a little pretty easy too. So let's just click on this origin. Now this is your zero marker in space. I didn't mention it earlier, but it's basically your anchor point. Okay, so it's good to lock that in so you could completely constrain the model. So click, drag this up, and get near about 2 inches. You're going to click again, and you can type in 2, hit enter. Now drag this to the right, and this is going to be approximately 1.5. So click around there and type 1.5. Enter. Drag this down. This is going to be 1 inch, so about 1 inch there. Type 1, hit enter. Drag this across. This is going to be I think it's 1.5. I might change the actual drawing, but essentially it's going to be very similar to what you see here. So I'll make this 1.25. Enter. Drag this up and infer. See the little inference line? Go ahead and click and go ahead and type. You could type in 1, I suppose, or else later on. Actually, I'll show you how to add a constraint to it. So let's ignore that one. Drag this out about 1 inch. Click. Drag it down. And then this one goes a little deeper, about 1.2-ish, but leave it blank. Don't type in a value. Drag this out about 1 inch. Click. Drag this down and infer to the origin. See the little inference line that's there? Click. And now connect it to the origin. And we'll go to the dimension tool. Let's dimension this one. This is supposed to be 0.85. And then we'll go ahead and dimension from here to here. We'll do a baseline dimension. Click on these 2 lines, drag that up, and that's going to be 3.75. Oops. And then one more. We could click either here to here or click on the bottom line. Drag it up. Again, we got a baseline. Let's make it 5 inches. Now you can see everything is fully defined. Now this one we didn't have to because it automatically picked up on that and made this collinear, I believe. So as I click on the lines, you could see some of the constraints that were picked up. Like here we have a coincident. And so if you don't want these constraints, you could always click on these and hit the delete key, and that will wipe it out. So for example, I could click on that and hit delete on my keyboard. It wipes it out. Now it's underdefined again. So you could drag it to the endpoint, lock it back in, or there's also always the undo, which is Control Z, or redo if it's available. Okay, let's go ahead and extrude this. This gets extruded a 1/2 inch, so I'm going to click on extrude. As long as it's a watertight solid, you'll see the shade inside. If it's not shaded, most likely it's not a watertight boundary condition, and thus it'll try and make a thin feature, or it will just fail to extrude it. So let's go ahead, and now we're going to set this to 0.5. Oops. There we go. Hit the green check. Right hold, and we have our part done. Now the next part, let's go to Onshape again here. Create, document, and this is going to be L, capital L, 1B. Hit create public document. Okay, now this one's a block, very similar to the first one, but it has a few more features to it. So select the front plane with the right mouse button, and new sketch. And I'm going to go normal to the front view orientation, and we're going to use the center point rectangle. Whenever a part is symmetric, it's a good idea to use that. I'm going to go ahead and drag this out, click, and it's actually 5 by 3. So I just type in the values and I hit enter on the keyboard, and it will allow me to put those values in without having to even click. Now I'm going to hit escape and just drag that down a little bit. Okay, now with this, we're going to go ahead and put the holes in. So draw a circle here, go to the circle right about there, click, and that's going to be 0.5. And then let's locate it 3/4 of an inch off of each edge. So we'll go over here, select the center point to the top edge. Let's get the center point again. I must have missed it. There we go. And get it between the poles there. And let's go ahead and put in 0.5, actually 0.75. Okay, let's do it again. Click on the center point to this left edge, drag it up, 0.75. Now, I'm going to hit escape a couple times to get out of the dimension tool and lay these dimensions out a little bit nicer. Okay, there we go. You don't have to do that, but it is a nice courtesy. So what we're going to do, I would like you to go ahead and do all of those normally. Otherwise, you could actually do the mirror tool here. And so for the mirror, we could draw a line and change them to construction geometry. So I'm going to click here and here, hit escape. Oops, I didn't quite finish that one, but I'm going to right click on this line and turn it to construction. All right, so let me continue on with drawing another line. Click here, drag it out, connect, hit escape on your keyboard, and now right click on the line and set it to construction. So now we have center lines. Those are the primary ingredient required in order to mirror. So to mirror these, you could actually select the circle that you want, and you can only mirror across one at a time as far as I know. So hold Control and select the center line that you'd like to mirror it across from. Go up here to the mirror tool. Oops, let's select that line again. It didn't take. There we go. Unfortunately, I was thinking if I held Control I could get them both, but didn't take. Except there. Hit escape. Let's try that again. Let's select what we want to mirror across. So we could hold Control, select both circles. Or better yet, I could drag across like this, make a window that selects them inside of an envelope, and then click on mirror, and then it says select the mirror line. Select the horizontal center line. Now I've noticed I've had to click twice. I'm not sure if that's my internet connection, because this is a cloud-based software. Sometimes you get a delay. And it could be due to a slower internet, so that's possible. I'm not sure why. But anyhow, there we have it. Now I'm going to go ahead and extrude this, and this gets extruded. Remember, at any time I could right hold to see this. We want to extrude this 1.5 inches. So I click up here, type in 1.5, and hit the green check. Now I'm going to go ahead and right click on this surface and new sketch. And once again, go to the front view orientation. We could use the center point rectangle, get in the center, click and drag it across right about there, get on the edge, click, and type in 1.5. Now, right hold, you could drag it to rotate again. And let's go to extrude, and this time select remove, and make sure it's going a depth of 1 inch. Hit the green check. And now we have our part. Let's dress it up a little bit. In my drawing in the manual, it usually looks just like that, and that's fine if you build it that way. But if you want to make it look a little fancier, especially for a portfolio, I recommend just enhancing it with some sculpture. So let's go to Fillet and set the fillet to, we'll go to 0.375 for the radius. Select this edge here, this one here, that one there, and we'll have to rotate to get the other side there. We could go to there's also wireframe or hidden lines visible and things like that. So if you wanted, you could do that too. I'm going to hit apply. Now I'm going to go to the chamfer tool, and I'll keep it at 0.2, and I'm just going to select this edge here and this edge here and apply. And you can see quickly we can make a really neat looking part from a very basic part. And again, here I'm going to go ahead and set this to set it to 1/2 inch. Let's have a little fun with that. Click there and there. And now we'll flip it around. And actually, let's put some countersinks. So we'll set it to 0.1. We'll put a small one on this edge here, this edge here, that edge there, and there. All right, now if you wanted to change any of those, be aware in the feature tree, you could just right click on it and edit. So any feature can be edited in here. So click on edit, as long as it was built inside the software. And let's say we want to bump that up. I'm going to set to 0.2. And notice they all update. So again, if you ever want to make changes, that's the beauty of the software, is that you could go back and change it. Let's shell it out. Let's go on the back side here. And we're going to go ahead and go to the shell command. And we'll leave it at 0.1. And maybe we'll make it a little smaller. Let's go 0.062. And then select the back face. And there we have it shelled out. Hit the green check. Okay, and that concludes exercise 1.